It was just past midnight when I heard the first knock. At first, I wasn't even sure I had heard anything at all. The night was quiet, almost unnervingly so, and I had been half asleep on the couch, the TV playing some late-night rerun in the background. I sat up slowly, straining my ears, but all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the house settling. Then there it was again. A knock, unmistakable this time. It was soft, almost polite, like someone was testing to see if anyone was home. My heart started to race as I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 12:17 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I certainly didn't know anyone who would drop by unannounced at this hour. I stood up, every sense suddenly on high alert, and moved cautiously toward the front door. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the shadows from the dim overhead light stretching out like dark fingers. I hesitated at the door, peering through the peephole. The porch light cast a dim glow over the front step, but there was no one there. I held my breath, half expecting another knock, but the silence stretched on. I let out a shaky breath, telling myself it must have been some kind of mistake. Maybe a stray branch tapping against the door or a neighbor's cat. I turned to head back to the living room, but as soon as I took a step, there was another knock, this time louder and more insistent. Came from the back door. My heart dropped into my stomach. The back door. There was no way anyone could have gotten around the house that quickly without me hearing something, and the thought of someone lurking back there made my skin crawl. I didn't have a peephole on the back door, which only made the situation worse. I'd have to open it if I wanted to see who was out there, but every instinct screamed at me not to. I stood frozen in the hallway, my eyes darting between the front and back doors. The knocks continued, a steady rhythm that seemed almost deliberate, as if whoever was out there knew exactly how to unsettle me. The walls seemed to close in on me, the air thick with tension. My mind raced through the possibilities. Maybe it was a prank, some teenagers messing around, or a delivery person who had the wrong address. But why at this hour, and why wouldn't they call out or announce themselves? The more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I reached for my phone, my hand trembling, and dialed 911. My voice was barely steady as I explained the situation to the operator, who assured me that a patrol car would be sent to check it out. Stay inside, she instructed me. Don't open the door for anyone. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, and hung up the phone. The knocking had stopped, but the silence that followed was almost worse. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I crept toward the back door as quietly as I could, my heart pounding so hard I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. I pressed my ear to the door, listening for any sign of movement, but there was nothing. No footsteps, no shuffling, just the eerie stillness of the night. I considered calling out, asking who was there, but the words died in my throat. What if they answered? What if I didn't like the answer? The minutes dragged by, each one feeling like an eternity. I checked the time on my phone. 12:34 a.m. It hadn't been that long since I called, but it felt like hours. I paced the hallway, my mind spinning with fear and uncertainty. I tried to distract myself, focusing on the hum of the refrigerator or the faint buzz of the TV in the other room. But the fear kept creeping back in, gnawing at me. Finally, I heard it, the distant sound of a car approaching. Relief washed over me as I realized it must be the police. I hurried to the front window, peeking through the blinds to see the patrol car pulling up to the curb. 2 officers stepped out, scanning the area with flashlights. I rushed to the front door, practically yanking it open, and waved them over. They approached cautiously, their expressions serious but calm. "Are you the one who called?" one of them asked. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained what had happened. They listened carefully, then asked if they could check around the house. I stepped aside, letting them in, and watched as they methodically checked every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. One of them went out back, shining his flashlight into the dark corners of the yard, while the other stayed with me, asking more questions. "Did you see anyone?" he asked. "No," I replied, feeling a bit foolish now. "I just heard the knocks." He nodded, jotting something down in his notebook. "It's possible it was an animal or even a branch scraping against the door, but it's good that you called us. Better safe than sorry." I nodded, though the explanation didn't sit right with me. The knock had been too deliberate, too precise, but I didn't argue. I just wanted the night to be over. After what felt like an eternity, the officer who had gone outside returned. "No signs of anyone," he said, reassuring me. "The yard's clear, and there's no damage to the doors or windows. Whoever it was, if there was someone, they're long gone now." I nodded again, forcing a smile. "Thank you. I really appreciate it." They stayed for a few more minutes, giving me some advice on securing the house and making sure I had someone I could call if I needed anything. Then, with one last sweep of the area, they left, the patrol car's headlights cutting through the darkness as they drove away. I locked the door behind them, double-checking every lock, every window. The house was quiet again, but the unease lingered. I tried to go back to the couch to pick up where I left off, but I couldn't focus. Every little noise made me jump. Every shadow seemed to move. Eventually, I turned off the TV and headed to bed, though I knew sleep would be impossible. I lay there in the dark, my mind replaying the night's events over and over. The knocking, the silence, the dread. It all felt like some terrible dream, but I knew it wasn't. As the hours dragged on, the fear began to fade, replaced by exhaustion. But just as I was starting to drift off, I heard it again. A soft, almost hesitant knock. My eyes snapped open, my heart leaping into my throat. It was coming from the front door this time. I sat up, every muscle tensed, listening intently. The knock came again, louder now, more insistent. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the truth. Whoever had been out there earlier hadn't left. They had been waiting. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking, and dialed 911 again. The operator's voice was calm, but I could hear the concern in her tone as I explained that the knocking had started again. "Stay on the line," she said. "Officers are on their way." But as I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, the knocks continued, relentless and demanding. The fear that had been gnawing at me all night suddenly surged, overwhelming me. I knew I should stay inside, keep the doors locked, but something in me snapped. I had to know who was out there. I crept toward the front door, every step feeling like a mistake, but I couldn't stop myself. My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob. The knocks grew louder, more frantic. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and yanked the door open. The porch was empty. I stared out into the night, my heart racing, but there was no one there. The street was deserted, the shadows still. I stepped out onto the porch, my eyes scanning the darkness, but I saw nothing. No movement, no sign of anyone. Just the empty, quiet night. The relief was fleeting, replaced by a new, deeper terror. If there was no one out here, then who or what had been knocking, and why couldn't I see them? I backed into the house, slamming the door shut and locking it. My breath came in short, panicked gasps as I pressed my back against the door, as if that could somehow keep the fear at bay. I glanced at the clock. 10:30 a.m. The knock came again, loud and clear, right behind me. My blood ran cold as I realized the horrifying truth. The knock hadn't come from the front door. It had come from inside the house.